Ila Pauline, Deborah Hinder. Give a couple of minutes.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to you. Good middle of the day to here.
Yes.
And
How
hi.
was?
It's weird seeing you on the screen. I'd rather see you in
Much better in person, much better in person.
Yeah. But
But we'll
okay.
take what we can get.
I was just going to say that, Rebecca. I was just going to say that. You take what we can get. Hi, Jenny. We didn't see you when you were there, when I was in New York.
I know.
Manchester, oh, you were in New York.
In Israel. No, you were in.
When I
yeah,
was in London, where were you?
I was in Israel. So we
How
did
fun.
the swapping round. I know, I couldn't believe it. It was like, oh, okay, well.
Funny. Okay. We were each where Hashem wanted us to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not, that's Hashem. Wow. Yeah. I was going to say, Michelle, Rebecca, had your Shabbos food come out? How the guests? Like, I feel like, I was just there. And
Yeah, it was so lovely. I wish you had been. I took you with me. It was wonderful. Really wonderful, really special. Thank you.
I keep laughing when I talk about how I was so, I kept closing my eyes when you were driving because everything was so disorienting. But okay, we had really a wonderful time. Naomi, we missed you. We wish you'd have come down to London. Okay.
Maybe next time.
Bezrat Hashem, Pauline, so good to see you, and everybody. Laura Hinders, good to see your words here, and who's all the people here. Okay. Oh, Mrs. Kaplan got off. No, she's on two of them. All right. I have in my Tehillim that we were up to Nun Vav. Is that what you have in your Tehillim? Or not?
No, what?
I don't.
No.
That's just what I was saying. I have a thing in my Tehillim, bookmark, but I don't think that we were learning that.
What did you say, Nun?
Nun Vav, we were not learning that, right?
Well, maybe we finished Nun. Hey,
You're right. That's
I think we finished Nun Hey because my notes are also in Nun Hey, but we didn't start
okay.
Nun Vav.
Did we really finish Nun Hey? No.
The one you were in Eretz Israel one.
I was going to say I wasn't in the last chair.
No, but we did it. But I'll try and find it.
Are you sure? I think we finished at Yud Tet. Look at Parak Nun Hey Pasuk Yud Tet 19. See if that's where we finished. Right? And that's
I've got something that I've already got from the week before on Chaf Gimel.
We were up to Nun 19 on Nun Hey. Yeah.
Right. That's what I have also written down here. You have on Chaf Gimel from the week before. That can't be. Look and see. Chaf Gimel of Nun Vav.
Maybe it was another time, but I've got notes.
Yeah. Okay. I remember this because I remember saying I'm going to sing you the song, which I'm not. But this is a very hi Marcel. This is a very Chabad sing this whole parak of Tehillim from Yud Tes till the end. It's one of the songs that they sing, one of the tefillah that they say. Okay, so we're talking now, it's so funny because I'm remembering so many of the details of the trip. You should know that after I left you, so I went to New York and I saw, my kids and took the grandchildren out. And And now it turns out that many of them are coming here in August, which is really, really nice. So I just had such a wonderful memory of,
I'm sorry, before we start, we just want to always add Naomi's son for Refuah. And I'm just seeing if there was another message. Okay, so Yaakov Yeshua ben Nomi, and also a very dear friend, Shamaria Bat Yael, his 23-year-old lovely young lady who had major brain surgery, but now she's actually just had another stroke. So we just daven for her.
oh, wow. Wow.
She's in Eretz Yisrael, and she's supposed to be, she's going to be as a madricha on a girls' camp. Yetzer Hashem. But yeah.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, we're reading this Perek Nun Hey, which was the Perek that one of the Prakim that David HaMelech wrote when he was devastated by the rebellion of his son Avshalom, and that was encouraged by one of David's HaMelech's good friends / mentors / teachers, whose name was Achitophel. And we know that it was a very breaking moment for David HaMelech. The whole point of that rebellion was based on the misunderstanding of the soul of David HaMelech. And Chazal tell us that David HaMelech was the first Mashiach. And there was not, it's been like that for generations and generations, where we misunderstand some of the greats of our nation, and we don't understand them. We don't understand their ruchnius, because they're on such a high level that we think that they're on a low level. King David HaMelech, was on a very, very high level spiritually. He was Mashiach's nefesh. And yet people who were not on his level couldn't understand him. And because they couldn't understand him, instead of saying in a humble way, he's on too high a level, they criticized him. And Chazal warned us that we should not do that when Mashiach comes. Now, I don't think that we will, but I will tell you that in the past, we have 4 leaders that I can think of right offhand, who people criticized because they just didn't get it. One of them was the Rambam. In the beginning, the earliest was the Rambam, Maimonides, who decided that because of the Yeridas Hadoros, because the generations, now he lived 1,000 years ago, could you imagine? But he said that he, instead of people wading through the entire Talmud to figure out the halacha, he just wrote a list of all the halachas, Mishnah Torah. And his contemporaries were very upset with him. They said, you can't do things like that. That's a new kind of a method of studying Torah, and we don't do things like that. We want everyone to be a Talmud scholar and to wade through the entire compendium of all the Gemaras and to have a thought process and to be able to paskin. He said, no, it's not. It doesn't work like that. So in the beginning, Mishnah Torah was very condemned. Now, of course, Rambam is accepted by the entire Jewish world. The Ramchal, the Ramchal, the Ariya Kodesh, the Ramchal, all of these great people, when they first came on the scene, their contemporaries were very suspicious of them. You have to know that. That's an important rule to remember when you see current day contemporaries who people are suspicious of, who I will talk about in a second. So the Ramchal, when he began to write Kabbalah, the Ramchal did to Kabbalah what the Rambam did to Halacha. The Ramchal began to write bullet points of thoughts in Kabbalah. Derech Hashem is the easiest one to read, and people did, and he was very, very young, and people didn't how do I say it, they opposed him. And then the Baal Shem HaKadosh, of course, had tremendous opposition. Rabbi Nachman had tremendous opposition, and even Lubavitch Rebbe had tremendous opposition. People didn't understand him, and even Rabbi Meir Kahana, Zichrono Livracha, had tremendous opposition. Now you see signs all over Eretz Yisrael. Kahana Tzadak. Rabbi Meir Kahana was right. But when and by the way, I was privileged to have him as a teacher when I was in high school, before he became so mefusam, and before he became so famous. And he was an incredible tzaddik. He was an incredible on his personal level, on his avodas Hashem. He was an incredibly high madrega person, but he had a thought, and it was before its time. Rav Kook, the same thing. These people who have ideas that are before their time, instead of the populace saying, we don't understand it, but he's awesome, they criticize him, they critiqued him. And so you have to be very careful about that. I was just teaching, you all know that I'm so appreciative of the fact that the Yanuk of the Rav of Shlomo Yehuda is in this world right now. So I was giving a class to a group of Beis Yaakov girls who are here now. We have a wonderful new program here that all these Beis Yaakov teachers, they're teachers, and they're here for 2 weeks to get a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of a replug in, because they're all from Chutz La'aretz. And so I talked a little bit about my Rav, and one of them raised her hands. She said, but is he accepted in the mainstream, frum world? And that's exactly the kind of question that people shouldn't be, I understand where it came from. He's in a place that's above, it's a different place altogether. But people are suspicious. Now, the root of that is good. The root of being suspicious in any new way of living Yiddishkeit is crucial, because Anshe Oref, we are a very, very stubborn nation, and we don't want to make any deviation from that which is 100% emes. So if something comes up that's a little bit like we don't understand it, we have to investigate. That's good. But on the other hand, and we see that only time takes, after time, we see that these tzaddikim who we had a question about, we see in the end that they were 100% justified, and we respect them and we accept them in the Jewish world. So it's a good reason that we criticize, but we also have to remember that there's something that we have to know called humility. Now, of course, there are certain things that when new religions are made, like when Christianity was made, that's a brand new Avodah Zarah religion. Of course, there's nothing to question. We saw right away that it was idolatry. But within the Torah world, you have to question, but then you have to also, it's a tricky dance, so you have to dance. Okay, so that's what happened to Avshalom. Avshalom got caught up by people who had a big ego. Now, ego is such a difficult thing. According to the Ramchal, ego is the point of the Yetzer Hara that is the root cause of every single mistake that we make is ego. It's I'm right, you're wrong. It's I had, me, myself, and I. That's the root cause of that. According to Ramchal, that's what the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra was. It was about me. Hashem said what you should do, and then Adam and Chava said, yeah, but we have a different idea. So ego, and it's so hard for people to see their own egos that get in the way. And I could see your ego, and you could see my ego, but it's so hard for me to see my own ego. That's just how it is. And you have to be very, very skilled to try to help another person with their ego, because they're stuck. They're stuck in a mindset that can't move. It's a problem. And how do you unstick them? And how do you make them realize that that there's a destructiveness that's overtaking them? That's what happened to David. That's what happened to Avshalom. That's what happened to Achitophel. David did not get stuck in ego, because David had no ego. David HaMelech says about himself. He eradicated his ego, his sense of I, his sense of me, his sense of Anochi. He eradicated that. But so this is what this Tehillim is all about. Okay, now, in the beginning of the Tehillim, he was crying and he was heartbroken, etc. Now, as most Tehillims, as most Tehillims progress, as the prayer progresses, when you pray, when you talk to God, so you will, and if you do this regularly, you will notice that there's a progression of how the relationship works. And that is, number one, you start to cry, complain, upset, you're getting out all of the whatever it is. And then as you continue to talk to Hashem and to expand what's bothering you and to explain it more to yourself, etc. As you begin to have that conversation with Hashem. Somebody has to mute themselves. Debbie, you have to mute yourself. Rivaya, you have to mute yourself. RT has to mute yourself. iPhone, all the people have to mute themselves. Or whoever's the hostess on this thing, please mute. Did you ever figure that out? How come you can't figure that out? I don't understand. You can run.
Because there's a code. There's a code. And I can do a lot of different things. And then there are just some things that I've got to get onto this and I've got to put the number in before. And I don't know. I just.
Okay. I was going to say.
I'll see if I can find it and put it back on and see if it works.
In the meantime, everybody else has to mute herself. So, so I was going to, I'm laughing and saying, you can coordinate 1,000 things at once. And this, the technical thing, okay, it's a good thing for us also. Where are you sitting? I don't now, now that I know your house, where are you sitting? In your dining room?
Did you not see this picture on my dining room wall?
I did not pay attention to it because I was so busy. Is that?
This is where I've been for 3 years.
I recognize you. Now I recognize you where you're sitting, but now in my head, I can't see.
In the dining room, in the dining room.
Across from the Sforim, on the other side of the other wall.
Across from the Sforim.
Okay, okay. Oh, there I go. There you go. Oh, there was such a nice. Okay.
And my Shabbos candles are out already.
I enjoyed it so much, so much. Okay. Okay, so now let's go into the psukim. So now, what I was saying is that after you have your, as you're progressing in your conversation, Lisa, are you really in Paris or is that your last name?
That's my last name.
That's your last name.
Lisa Paris from London and in London.
Because I was in Paris. I didn't tell you that whole story, Rebbe Sindov. I'll have to tell you privately about my story in Paris. Okay. Anyway, so as you talk to Hashem, as you talk and you talk and you talk, and you get out of yourself, you get out of your house, you get out. That's why it's so good to talk to Hashem outside. Rabbi Nachman says, go take a walk, go outside, go to a park, go to where there's trees, go to where there's something beautiful, because it takes you out of the, we're in a small, our brain is stuck in a small place. And because of that, we think there's no hope. We think there's no cure, that we think there's no way out. That's because our brain is stuck in a small place. So go outside to a beautiful place and begin to talk to Hashem and do it regularly. So what happens when you do that is that at the end of at a certain point in the conversation with Hashem, everything shifts. It shifts into optimism. It shifts into positivity. It's Lisa, you have to mute yourself. It shifts into anything other than negativity. Lisa and Debbie have to mute yourselves. So that's what happens in this parak. In most parakas, you see that at the end of the parak, as you come to the end, David HaMelech, who has just cried hard out, he begins to see positivity. He begins to see a hope, a way out. Hada b'shalom nafshi, Perak Nun, Hey, Pasuk Yud Tet, chapter 55, verse 19. Rebbe Sindov, send text to all the people who are making noise in the background. Hashem pada, Hashem redeems b'shalom nafshi. Hashem redeemed my soul in a healthy way. Mikrav li, and he removed me from the krav. The krav means the milchama, the war. Hashem redeemed me, and from this battle, this inner battle and this outer battle, the inner battle and the outer battle. Hashem removes me peacefully from the inner battle and the outer battle. Now, if you like to analyze Tehillim, which we do, so if you look at the pasuk, you see this phrase "Pada b'shalom nafshi mikrav li." You see two opposing words. You have the word b'shalom, which means peaceful, and you have the word krav. Krav means a battle, a war. So you see how David HaMelech is saying, you can't avoid a war. You can't avoid problems in life. They come, they run after us, they appear. They are generally there.
Sorry, Debbie, I've just texted you. Could you just mute, please? Sorry, I'm trying to claim host, but I'm not being successful yet. If you could just mute, thank you. And
she-
also someone who's on an iPhone.
Thank you. Okay, the iPhone, oh, she figured it out. Good. So a lot of times, we don't like challenges. Nobody likes challenges. None of us like it. Hashem says, I know you don't like it, but that's part of this world. And I want you to see how you react to the challenges. So we're going to become krav. A krav means a battle. Now, what's the difference between a krav and a milchama? A krav is from the word karov. Karov means close. It's like a guerrilla warfare. It's like when people are shooting at you close by, as opposed to, let's say, cyber warfare. Cyber warfare, there's a conference in Israel now, or either now or next week, on cyber warfare. It's interesting that, and I saw like a preview of this conference, and one of the cyber people, one of these big techie people, computer geniuses, I don't think any of us women fit into that category. Somehow our age and our gender somehow preclude us from being these geniuses in computers. But whatever it is, in Israel, they were explaining why you need cyber warfare conferences. And the guy who was presenting it said, now Ukraine and Russia are having a war, and both of them failed to destroy the other using cyber tactics. Hi, Sarah Lee, it's so good to see you, but you have to now mute yourself. So he was describing how most war nowadays is cyber warfare. That means, they don't just shoot guns at you from close range, but they're far away. Somebody's sitting in an office someplace in Tel Aviv, and he's controlling the computers of the people in Iran. That's how the warfare is now, but that's not a krav. And in the times of David HaMelech, a krav means a real war where there's a guy shooting you from across the street, chas v'shalom. So it's a close-by war. The word krav, which means a battle, or right, it also has the word korban. Korban means that sacrifice that we make, that offering that we make to Hashem to come close to Him. So David HaMelech says, Hashem is redeeming me from the krav. Ki b'rabim hayu imadi. You should know something. There were so many people that were against me. That's the same words that he's using as in Parag Gimel, because Parag Gimel, chapter 3 in Tehillim, and chapter 55 in Tehillim are talking about the same tkufa, the same time frame. And here you see the medrash, an illustration of the medrash that tells us that the book of Tehillim is not written in chronological order, because chapter 3 and chapter 55 should have been next to each other, because they're both talking about the rebellion of Avshalom against his father David. But you see, they're spaced very far away. So, but in chapter 3, he talks about Rabim Kamu Alai, great people went against me, talking about his own son, and talking about Achitophel. And here he talks about the same thing, Rabim Hayu Nadilo, great people who went against me. And that's a scary thing. Could you imagine how independent you have to be, how strong you have to be in your own truth, when great people, big people, people that you respect, are opposing you in your hashkafa. So all Baalei Tshuva have to go through that when they decide to become Torah observant, and their parents, who they love and who raise them and who they respect, and their parents don't understand, like, what are you doing? What is this Shabbos? What are these restrictions? What is this Torah learning? What is this praying? The parents who they respect so much are going against their new understanding of how to live a Torah life. And it's hard for them. And they have to be so strong in their Yiddishkeit, in their hashkafa, to not argue with their parents. And sometimes it's a spouse, and sometimes it's a child or a best friend, and sometimes it's a psychologist or it's a doctor. And you have to know what's the truth. And you have to be so strong in your truth so that when big people oppose you, you don't crumble. Ki b'rabim hayu imadi. David HaMelech said that about himself. Great people opposed me. Yishma kel v'ya'anem. Hashem, please hear them. V'ya'anem. Now, the word v'ya'anem is an interesting word. It means to lower them, make them ani. Ayin nun yud. Ayin nun yud means poverty, to impoverish them. But David HaMelech did not mean to impoverish them financially, nor did he even mean to impoverish them, to lower them from their power. Rather, he means to impoverish their ego, to lower the ego. The ego keeps saying, I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. I know the whole circumstances. That's what the ego says. And David Hamelech says, no, sometimes you don't. Sometimes somebody else could see your situation better than you can. Because you're involved in it, you don't have unrestricted, unfettered understanding. You're no b'davar. You have a self-interest here. And so sometimes we need, like the Gemara says, each person needs somebody else to free himself from prison, right? So Yishma Kel V'Yaneh means God should listen to my prayer. Please, Hashem, listen to my prayer. And humble them, make them see that they're wrong. Yoshev Kedem Selah. Now he's describing Hashem. Hashem who was from ever and ever. Kedem means ancient times. Hashem is Kadmon L'chol Davar. We sing that in the Piyut of Yigdal Elokim. Kadmon L'chol Davar. Hashem is the ancient one, meaning he's before anything was, is Hashem. So Yoshev Kedem means you, Hashem, who are you live before you live before me, you live before my problems, you're going to live after me, right? You, please, Hashem, listen to me and help these other people with their mental state, because they're all off, says King David. Now, you might say, well, maybe David's off, right? But he wouldn't have included this in Tehillim if he was off. In the end, Hashem showed him that he was right, and those who rebelled against him never perished. And it was such a sad thing because these are people who were close to him. He just wanted them to do teshuvah. Asher ein chalifos lamo. You should know something. In those people that I'm talking about, they don't change their opinions. And they don't fear God. They don't have deep fear of God. If we had, ladies, all of us, me, deep fear of God, we would never utter a word of negativity. We would, against another person, we wouldn't say lashon hara. We wouldn't complain. If we really had Yireh Shamayim, we would feel Hashem at all times right next to us. Remember that's one of the principles that we learned together. The third principle, or the second principle, feel and know that Hashem is with you at all times. That's called Yireh Shamayim. Now, it's good when you feel that and you feel the love that you have for Hashem and the love that Hashem has for you. So Hashem is with us at all times. And when you're in a place of doing the right thing, the correct thing, we're learning Torah now, so we should be in a makom, a place of love and gratitude. And when we're in a place of some kind of a questionable activity and we feel Hashem mamish right next to us, we should dive into a place of Yireh Shamayim, and is what I'm doing right? This is as long as we can hold on to, we can be in control of our mind. So these people, Asher ein chalifos lamo, they don't change their minds. They're not lachlif. There's too much of an earth element in them. They're too stubborn. And they don't fear Hashem. I heard this week very interesting. Did you send it to me? No, somebody else sent it to me. One of our chavos sent me a clip from Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager, I'm not quite sure who he is. I know that he has an online university. I know that he's from, and I think that someone said that maybe he lectures every once in a while in Aish. I'm not sure. In Aish Torah, I'm not sure. But he's a very, very smart man. And he was talking about the craziness of the gender stuff that's going on in the secular world. And, the absurdity of it. So Baruch Hashem, when I was in London with you holy ladies, so I was always being driven around by other holy ladies, right? Rebecca was there, right, driving me, and other holy ladies. And so we didn't go to any place secular. Only one time we went, somebody took me in the area. I wanted to see Buckingham Palace. And who was it that drove me? Who?
Deborah Daniels.
Deborah
Deborah Daniel.
Deborah drove me, and we got close by. I said, "Oh, get me out of here." I just didn't want to be there. So I was with holy ladies the whole time. I wanted to stay with holy ladies. Same thing in America. I went to America just for a few days. I took my grandchildren out to eat, and we went to Manhattan because we went once locally in a holy neighborhood, but then we went to Manhattan to have a chavaya. And I'll tell you the truth, you know, I even though I was brought up in America, but I always feel when I go to Manhattan, I always felt like a tourist, like, whoa, look at those buildings. The buildings are every new building there, I don't know if you've been in Manhattan, they have these skyscrapers and every one is like fancier than the next, and you do not see the sky because the skyscrapers are blocking the sky. But I decided I'm not looking. It was so weird. I don't want to see all those things. So this Dennis Prager was talking about how that this whole gender silliness or tragedy or whatever you want to call it is, he said when he was in Columbia University, I think he said 30 or 40 years ago, he said he said, don't think this is a new thing. They've been programming this for 30 or 40 years. And he said he was in Columbia University, and they began to teach these absurd teachings that there's nothing different between a woman and a man, and biologically there's no difference, and then you can decide and all that stuff. He said it was in Columbia University. Now, Columbia University is a prestigious school. And he said on this clip, he said at that point in his life, he had the first and maybe the only epiphany. You know what's an epiphany? An epiphany means when you have it hits you like a truth that hits you, and it's so true that you know that it's emes. So he said he had an epiphany. He said when he was in elementary school, you know, when they daven out loud, he said they used to sing, you know, Matovo Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Asech Yisrael, right? That's in this week's parsha, and they would sing Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. The beginning of wisdom is fearing God, and he said it hit him that there's no wisdom in Columbia University because there's no fear of God. There's no God in any of these universities. There's the opposite. There's the eradication. They want to eradicate God. So when you don't have a fear of God, here it says here, when you don't have fear of God, then your logical mind gets corrupted. And that's what we have here. That's what we have here in our you know, in the government here in the state of Israel. There are those who don't fear God. And now all of their corruption is coming out. We're chapter 55, and now we're up to Pasuk 21. So there's no fear of God, and that's what he was saying, is that he's fearful that the rebellion against him, he wasn't afraid for his life so much as he felt bad for the rebels, because they don't have fear of God. And it was his son. Shalach yadav bishlomav. And this enemy sent his hand, this Achitophel, sent his hand against me, who was peaceful with him. Chilel brito, and he broke his promise to me, because he was my Rebbe, he was my teacher, he was my Chavrusa. This Achitophel, this is what David is saying about Achitophel. This is why it was so painful for him. This Achitophel was a Talmid Chacham. Ladies, it's scary for me to have to say this. It's scary for us to understand that you could have people who are scholarly in Torah, and yet they could be problematic. They could be, you know, not have Yiras Shamayim. They could mislead. It's a terrible thing. It's scary to say that. That's why we need Mashiach Tzidkenu so badly, for all of the things that we need Mashiach for. Meaning, the world needs, first of all, the only reason we're supposed to really ask Mashiach is because we want Hashem's presence to be manifest in the world. That's really why we're supposed to ask the Mashiach. Not just because all of the problems in the world are manifestations of the lack of God's manifestation in the world. Sickness, economic problems, wars, conspiracies, corruption, sexual perversion, everything that we suffer from is a direct result of the Shekhinah being in exile, of Hashem's presence not being powerfully manifest in the world. And when Mashiach comes, we're supposed to ask that Hashem should bring Mashiach so that his presence comes into the world. The Rambam says that if you don't have this hashkafa, then you're really off. So I'll say it again. We have to want Mashiach not primarily, here I'll say it like this, secondarily or thirdly, we want Mashiach to come to fix the world, that there shouldn't be competition, there shouldn't be corruption, etc. That's not the reason we want Mashiach. We want Mashiach because Hashem's name is profaned in this world, and Hashem's presence is not felt in this world. And because Hashem's presence is not felt, because Hashem covers up his presence, and for thousands of years, that's the way it's been. So people don't think God exists. And because of that, Chas Hashem, and because of that, they act out in absurd behaviors and crime. So we want Hashem to be the king in this world. We don't want to be the king anymore. We want Hashem to be the king. And we want him to build the Beis HaMikdash so that his holiness is permeating to the world from the focal point of the Beis HaMikdash. And we want Mashiach Tzidkenu, the person, to come to be able to teach the world about Hashem. Because not everybody will become prophets right away at all. So we need a person to teach, not to be God. Chas v'shalom, that's what the Christians messed up. But to teach about Hashem and to teach us how to do Torah and mitzvah. So one of the most painful situations is when we have a person who's scholarly in Torah and who's not living the Torah way, whether it's in a hidden way, whether it's in a revealed way. So he says, you, Achitofel, we learn together Torah. You're a genius in Torah. You're from. You wear your tzitzis out, you wear payas, whatever, however he looks. But you attacked me, and I didn't attack you. You started up with me. Shalach yadav bishlomav. You, I'm shalom itcha. I'm peaceful with you. I'm okay with you. I'm happy to have a conversation and work out all the differences. Talk to me. But, you got to be my host, Mazel Tov. So talk to me, says David Achitofel. But don't battle me. You instead, what did you do? Chilel briso. We had a friendship, a bris, a covenant, a friendship, and you broke it. And this is how you did it, and this is so painful, and we have to watch out for this. You were very smooth in your compliments to me. A machma'ah is a compliment. You were a smooth talker. Chalak means like glatt. In Yiddish, glatt kosher. Where's glatt kosher? I forgot. I don't know if you have that in UK English, but glatt means smooth. It means there's no shyness on it. It's smooth. Everything. The lungs are smooth. Everything when they open up after they slaughter the animal in the kosher in a painless way, they open up the insides to see are the internal organs, are they healthy? Because we can't eat an animal whose internal organs, whose lungs are pierced, are unhealthy, etc. That's called chalak, basar chalak. And it means smooth. So your speech, you were so nice to me, but then but in your heart, you were figuring me out. You were trying to see, like, how can you use our relationship to go against me? Rakud Zorav Mishem, same idea repeated. It's so painful to him. Your words were softer than oil, but they were curses. They were double-edged swords. How could you do this to me, says David? How could you be so make-believe, you're so respectful of me, and then behind my back you betray me? Betrayal is one of the most painful emotions that anyone can feel, is betrayal from someone who they're in a protected relationship with. If you marry to somebody and they betray you, if you have a business partner and they betray you and they go against you, whatever, it's impossible. Let's finish. This you have to learn by heart, and you have to say this all the time. Throw upon Hashem all of your troubles, and He will support you. Your Yahav is what's on your back, what you're carrying, your burdens, your baggage, right? Throw it onto Hashem. Give it to Hashem, and Hashem will take care of you. I can't fight you, says David. I can only pray to God, and He's going to have to work this out. I personally can't do anything here, says David. You're too powerful. We're too close. My son, I'm not going to hurt him. I have to throw it all on God's back, and He's going to take care of me. Lo yitein olamot latzadik. Hashem will never allow a tzaddik to fall apart. Hashem will come through for me. Now you see, David HaMelech, when he said these words, he was in such a bad place. Meaning he ran away from Yerushalayim. He was someplace in the hills in Midbar Yehuda. You all know where that is. If you go to the Kotel and you look out, if you're by the bus stop, let's say, and you look out onto the Arab section away from the old city, in the bottom there called Ir David, and then you look past that, that's called Midbar Yehuda. That's where he had to run. He lived near the Kotel, David HaMelech, who lived in Yerushalayim HaKodesh, and he had to run far, far away into in the direction of, let's say, towards the Dead Sea area, that whole area. He had to run towards the south and the east, and he's not in a happy, comfortable place. But yet he's positive. He says, "You will not let me fail." Period. Lo yitein olamot latzadik. You will not let tzaddik, and I know that I'm right here, says David. I didn't do anything wrong here. You won't let me fall. You will not fail me, Hashem. You will not fail me, Hashem. We have to have this attitude. We have to have this attitude. If you're going through something that's not you didn't do anything wrong. You're just going through something, someone's against you, and you didn't do anything wrong. And you can say these words, Hashem, you're not going to let me fail because it's not my fault. I didn't do anything. Now, this is a little bit painful to say, but he has to say, you, Hashem, you're going to go to the Midas Hadin. Elokim is Midas Hadin. It's the attribute of justice. And according to the attribute of justice, if we would take this to the court of law in Shemayim, they're going to be lowered. They're not going to win this case. They're going to be lowered into the netherworld. People who are murderous, have murderous intentions, and they're dishonest and they're corrupt, they will not live out their days. But I'm trusting you, Hashem. I trust you. We know that David HaMelech lived out his days till the last minute, meaning he died on his birthday. On his 7th, he was given 70 years of life by Adam Harishon, and then his days were filled in by Abraham, Yaakov, and Yosef HaTzadik, filled in his days, meaning gave him the inner part of his days. The outer part, the actual physical lifespan, was Adam Harishon. So he knew he had 70 years, and he filled it till the day, b'diuk till the day. I know I'm going to fulfill my destiny. And the people who are people of destruction, people who are corrupt, they're not going to make it. Now you might say, wait a minute, look at all these people nowadays, all these, evil people, and they live till old age, right? We don't question Hashem's cheshbonot. We don't understand the Reb Sadia Gaon tells us, and the Rambam tells us, I think, that whenever you see an evil person living out their long days, or an evil person, succeeding, we have this in Eov also, of course, the whole book of Eov was about this. It's what Hashem is doing is sad for that person, because if the person is evil, let's say Yimach Shemo, all the Nazis and the Germans, and some of them lived out, they all ran to South America. We don't know how many of them escaped. We have no idea where the head honcho, the real evil ones, we don't know where they are. But the ones that we found, that we knew about, some of them lived till an old age. Now they're bringing to trial some of these old people who were whatever they were in the Holocaust, and they were not. So they lived old. But you know what? They don't have Olam Haba. Olam Haba, which is the world to come, which is eternal bliss, which every single tradition in the world agrees to. Not that we need that, but of all the, every religion bases itself on the Torah. Everyone. If you study any religion, certainly the religions of Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Taoism, they all have roots in the Torah. And sometimes you see them and you say, wow, that's a pasuk. And sometimes people get nervous because some of the roots, let's say, for example, the idea of, I'm not even going to say I want to introduce into your heads questions, but sometimes you see customs by other religions or hashkafa of other religions that's actually coming from Yiddishkeit, from Judaism, but you get nervous because it sounds too Christian to be Jewish, like when we learn that it's part of Yiddishkeit, but it's one of those powerful Christian or Islam ideas, not so much Islam, but Christian. You get nervous because you wonder. But the point is that Christianity came out of Judaism. So they didn't take everything. Remember that the Christians, they abolished mitzvot and they abolished korban. They made Judaism, they took away the mitzvahs of it. But one thing they didn't take away, one thought that they didn't take away is Olam Haba, the world to come. And of course, they created a situation where if you don't believe in their religion, you get an eternal, the opposite of Olam Haba. And so an evil person who fills out his days in this world and who fills out his days, who lives long and comfortably in this world, has basically lost everything else other than the physical world. There's no continuity for that person. And this is a gigantic teaching of Emunah. It's because we haven't seen yet Olam Haba. Our neshamas, our souls, have indeed experienced Gan Eden, because all of us came from there. Before we were born, we were in Shemayim. Our souls were in a certain place. You can call it Gan Eden. You can't call it Olam Haba because that hasn't happened yet. But you could call it the world of souls, Olam HaNeshamos, whatever you call it, the waiting room, spiritual waiting room. All of us, that's where we were before we were born. Before we were attached into a body, we were all in a spiritual state, a spiritual world. And so that we intuitively know exists. But eternal reward, we don't know what that feels like. But that comes from Emunah. It's actually, it comes from Emunah. You have to believe in that. It actually is logical. It makes sense that there should be an eternal reward for people who do good things. But people who are bad, they're in Be'er Shachas, they're in a bad place altogether. And if they have a good life in this world, it's because once in their life they did a mitzvah. Could you imagine one time, Yimach Shemo, the evil of evils from the 1940s, maybe one time he crossed an old lady the street. I'm just giving an example. Now that's a mitzvah. He did something good. Hashem is not mifakech. Hashem does not ever ignore a mitzvah. So this evil person, he has to have a certain reward for that, because there's no mitzvah that goes unrewarded. Just like there's no mitzvah that goes unrewarded. And so that's what happens when you see a person who's evil and who's controlling, and now all of their corruptions are coming out. There's somebody here in Israel, I'm not going to say who, but eventually you'll hear about it. One of the past very big politicians. Turns out that and he has not such a good name either. They all have good names, meaning they can, but what's coming out about him now is lo yu'man, is unbelievable. And that's what the tzaddikim say, that at the end of time, all the corruption will be revealed. Just like all of our hidden mitzvot will be revealed. It's going to come to you a woman who's going to say, when Mashiach comes, Hashem's going to send you a woman, she's going to say, and she's going to bring you like a whole bunch of little kids. And she's going to say, these are your children. They're my biological children, but they're your children. And you'll say, who are you? I don't even know who you are, who are these children, And she's going to say, yeah, I once came to one of your classes, or I once came to your Shabbos table, or you once gave me some charity, or whatever, you once smiled at me on the bus, or something. And you encouraged me, and that action that you did encouraged me to become more aware of my Judaism and to become a practicing Jew. And I began to study, and I got religious, and I got married and had a child and children. And all of this is because you once did a mitzvah to me. Now, we don't even know that. We don't know what we've done. We don't know how. So just like all the corruption is being revealed in the world now, You'll see, read the Israeli newspapers in a couple of days to see what I'm talking about. Or maybe don't, but whatever. So too, all the good that we've been doing is going to come out and it's going to be revealed. So Ani Evtach, we're trusting Hashem. We're really, really scrupulously and what word am I looking for? Painfully reviewing our own ego system, not ecosystem, but ego system. The ecosystem, don't throw plastics on the floor. The ego system, analyze. If you really, really are lucky and you have a very good friend who can, and you will not, and you can handle it, and you ask your friend, tell me about my ego, help me. I want to really be godly. I want to really be on the highest level when Mashiach comes. So be honest. When people ask, sometimes when people ask you, be honest with me and tell me what I have to improve, really what they're saying is, give me a compliment. That's really what they're saying. Most people cannot tolerate Musar in this generation. They can't tolerate it, which is why we refrain. We don't engage in telling people how to fix themselves. But if you have someone who's very, very strong in their personality and very committed to being holy, and they ask you, you take a deep breath and you say, listen, I think you're amazing, but maybe you have to work on X, Y, and Z. And if a person can, and then you feel, unless you're a real tzadikah, unless you're a really perfect tzadikah, you feel bruised, you feel insulted. That's normal. That's okay. It's okay. But then you take those words and pay attention to them and see, indeed, do I really want to improve? Am I ready to improve? And that's what David HaMelech was saying to his son and to this rabbi, this Achitophel, this encourager of his son. He was saying to them, do you want to go down to the lowest levels of Gehenna? Or do you want to get with the system, get with the program? And on a certain level, that's why, so Chabad make a big deal about what we learned today from Pada B'Shalom Nafshi until Bani Evtach Bach, that's a big deal for them. And they really embody, now, I'm a very nice salad or a cholent of all the Chassiduses. I love all the Chassidus and I try to find that which is mat'im for me in every single part of Torah. But one of the things that I was always amazed by Chabad is the power that they had. They're very empowered people, very powerful people. And one of the reasons is because the Rebbe said to them, go out and accomplish. Don't focus on yourself so much. You're going to be a great, don't do the daily beat yourself up. Rather, do the daily, go help people. The more people you help, Memela, your midah will be, your character traits will be refined. You'll learn how to do that. Hashem will send you shlichim. Hashem will send you messengers to help you, to clarify your character traits and to help you refine your character traits. Sometimes you have people that will yell at you and scream at you, and then you realize that that's also to refine your character traits. I told you this good story that happened to me, 35 years ago, maybe. I had in olden days an answering machine. Remember what those were? You had the phone would ring. And if you didn't want to answer or you weren't home, you say, hi, you've reached the house of so-and-so, please leave a message. And then you'd hear the message. So it was a Friday in the winter. And I am, Baruch Hashem now, Hashem knows it's so good that I don't have to work on Fridays. I don't work on Fridays. I don't teach on Fridays. I just get ready for Shabbos. So, but in America, I had to work on Friday. There was school on Friday. And actually, that was probably the most important day of school for these kids because I taught Balei Tshuva. And for them, Friday was getting ready for Shabbos. And they wanted Friday. They wanted us to have our song. We would sing Zmiras and teach them Zmiras. We would have a Friday, like a Oneg Shabbos. And they loved it. I hated leaving my house on Friday. I don't like to leave the house on Friday. I like to just focus on what I need to do for Shabbos. Anyway, It was a Friday. I got home. It was a winter short Friday. I got home from teaching at 1, and Shabbos started at 4. Okay, I prepared beforehand, of course. In the winter, you have to prepare beforehand. But still, there's a million things to do. And the phone rings, and I ran to get it. And I said, hello, like quick. And the lady on the phone, I'm sure I told the story 100 times. The lady on the phone said, hi, Miss So-and-so. So nice to have. I'm so glad I got you home. I'm calling you from Newsweek magazine. We're having a special. We'd like you to know if you want to have subscriptions. And she's like from the South of America. I don't mean South America. I mean Southern United States. They have like laid back. They speak slowly, not like America, not like New Yorkers who speak a million miles an hour because they're in a hurry. And she has all the time in the world. And meanwhile, it's Erev Shabbos, and I have no time. And I'm not interested anyway in a subscription from any Goyish magazine. And not just that, but it's one of these telemarketers. And they're annoying. So I said no, and I hung up the phone. Not interested, I hung up the phone. A minute later, the phone rings again. And I decided I'm not answering it. I'm too busy. So it clicked into the answering machine. And so it was the same lady. And instead of now having such a soft, calm voice, she said, you didn't have to be so impatient and hang up the phone. I mean, you could have said no, thank you in a nicer way. And then she hung up the phone. And that message was broadcast into my house because my answering machine was on speaker. So the whole house heard this lady giving me musar, saying, you didn't have to be so impatient. And I said, you're right. I said to the phone, you're right. I'm not going to call you back because it's an unlisted number, but you're right. I could have had the next, it would have taken me 10 seconds more to say, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, but really I'm not interested. And I really wish you a happy day and God bless you. How long did that take me to say that now? I don't know. But in those days, I was very impatient, younger and impatient, more impatient. So Hashem sends messengers, even when you're doing good things in life. Hashem sends messengers of Musar. Sometimes they're telemarketers, sometimes they're your husband, sometimes they're a shear, sometimes they're one of your kids, your next door neighbor, whatever. Ladies, I so nice to see you in person. I'm giving you all hugs, even though you're on my flat screen now, which is so weird for me. If I had never seen you in person, then it wouldn't be a big deal this Thursday shear. But the fact that we hung out together so much, and I just have to thank Rebecca publicly. I'm really going to embarrass you now. She took me into the airport. She waited with me online. She schlepped my baggage. She was so nice and schlepped me wherever I had to go. My flight was canceled. She restructured. She rescheduled. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hashem should reward you in this world and the next world, which He will. Thank you to Rebbe Sindov, organizing everything and hosting me and feeding me and all of that. And thank you all the people who came to the shiur, the people who are going to look at the shiur later online and who didn't come now, but they're going to be able to see it when we post it. I really miss you.
And thank you. I want to know where Rebecca was when you needed her in Paris.
Oh, that's a funny question.
Next time. Bezrat Hashem.
No, next time I'm going straight. I'm not going
to Tehillim obviously didn't work that hard. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, Baruch Hashem, everything, here I am alive and well to tell the story. And Baruch Hashem, it's fine. Everything was fine. I was just laughing because while I was in London, they treated me with kid gloves, and then I had to go to Paris. And there's a train, you get off the plane, you have to take a train to the next plane. You didn't know that. I didn't know it either. Whoa. Anyway, that's why I'm laughing when I see Lisa Paris, and I'm thinking, oh, is she from Paris? Like maybe I met you in the airport and you were there. Anyway, I think we made a beautiful chevra together, and I want to increase it. I want to make each of you. It turns out that Naomi and Marcel live near each other. They didn't even know each other, right? And now on my screen, they're one on top of the other. And now they're friends because of the shiur. So we have to make these connections, one with the other, and do chesed one for the other. And Bezrat Hashem, now you okay, we're taking turns. Now you all have to come here. I did it. I came to you. Now, Rebbe Sindov, you have to make a big tour and bring everybody here and somehow get a lot of money and give everybody subsidies and take us all to the loving and just have days and days of learning Torah and running around the country. And Bezrat Hashem, Bezrat Hashem. Okay,
amen, amen, amen.
Wonderful Shabbos.
Have a beautiful
Thank you.
Shabbos, everybody, and thank you.
Shabbos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
Shabbos.
so much. Good Shabbos. Thank you.
I'll ask you what you're cooking for Shabbos, but I'm not going to. Feel better, Nomi's son should feel better. As Ras Hashem, we're davening for him all the time. It should feel better.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, and all the Eretz Yisrael, yay, we're here. So grateful to be here. So grateful to Hashem.
Oh, Hashem. See, it's like when you come back after you've been here, it's another level, right?
Another level. It's absolutely another level. Okay, but England isn't so far. I was happy to say. So
That's not.
not so far.
My daughter just flew over to be with my mother for 48 hours, and she just messaged me literally now as I said that. She's so sad to leave my mom, but she literally flew in for 48 hours. And it's incredible, but there were a lot of things she actually went with them. She said she really wants to go to the Kaisel. And I have a nephew who's a good Israeli, and they couldn't get there driving. It was so bad, the traffic and everything. So he dropped them. He runs a shir in a hall opposite the Waldorf. So he left them for an hour at the Tachana Rishona, went back to pick them, and then he spoke his way into the plaza. He got them to take my mother in for 10 minutes. She's been living there for 11 years. And she said she actually hadn't been for years. And we said, why? You know, we realized why not? Because it was like too much for my stepfather to get there. So literally we used to be at Mamilla. That was our meeting place, was every time at least we had one meal at Mamilla. And I would go to the Kotel and they would go home. So I said, you see, and that was that thing. And she took my mother and they went last night to the Kaisel, and she's 10 minutes. The guy gave them 10 minutes. He says, go in, you've got 10 minutes. But my mother said he literally drove them near, onto the furthest place. So we've just got to be grateful and say, everything has its special time. And Mirz Hashem, all of our time will come very soon to be able to come without needing to return to Chutz La'aretz.
Amen. It's a beautiful story that if he was able to do that, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. You can do that at night, not in the day, but
in the night.
In the night or early in the morning.
Yeah.
If you have another person, they can. So she had celebrity, because that's what they do. All the tzaddikim, they drive all the way till the area.
The last spot.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she went. I'm so glad she went.
Baruch Hashem. And she really did. She said she got a lot from it.
Which daughter went? Now that I know your daughters, who came?
Ruchama.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
Good for all together, break.
Yeah. And all the Siyata Dishmai, so Danielle Rothman, who you know, Danielle Fritsch. Yeah. So Danielle, I just messaged her before she left because I knew she wouldn't have time. I said, Ruchama's going to be there. So this morning she popped in to say hello, and my mother needed something dealt with the bank. And everything's Israeli and in Hebrew, and Savlanut is not exactly our whatever. But Danielle was there literally at a time. My mother mamish needed a code for something, and she got it. I said, Hashem organizes and sends all the shlichim to help when we need it.
It's a little bit you also. It's your mother, so it's your merit.
Yeah. So Baruch Hashem.
You didn't hear what I just said. It's a little bit your merit because of all the things that you do.
Okay, I take that and I say Baruch Hashem, and we'll come and Mirz Hashem, that's just will get us back home. 32 years and counting.
Amen. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Thank you.